Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Today, I want to talk all about the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Now, I don't know about you, but lighthouses have scared me ever since I saw Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. So this lighthouse was built in 1899 near the west coast of mainland Scotland. So this lighthouse is really in the middle of just absolutely nowhere, right in the middle of the ocean, very isolating. And this lighthouse became famous after not one, not two, but three disappearances. So on December 15th, 1900, when a ship from Philadelphia to Scotland noted in its log that the lighthouse light was not operational during a very bad storm, which is a huge safety concern. So the lighthouse was manned by three men: James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. So they had a fourth man who was rotating on shore as well. The ship from Philadelphia arrived. The crew and relief found that the flagstaff had no flag. All of the provision boxes had been left on the landing, and more ominously, none of the lighthouse keepers were there to greet them. It was just an empty lighthouse. The captain of the ship that had just arrived attempted to call out to them by sending off a flare and blowing the ship's whistle. So if they were anywhere nearby, they would have heard this. So a boat was launched to look for the three men, and multiple men went on shore to search the island. Now, the island wasn't that big, so most certainly if the three men were on the island, they would have been found. So the men that went on shore and checked the cabin where they would stay, they saw that the beds were all unmade and that the clocks had stopped. He searched further and saw that the lamps had been cleaned and refilled, and their oilskins were found as well. Now, an oilskin is basically a raincoat, and the keepers knew not to go too far without them, as they were very essential since it was very rainy, wet, and windy, and this protected them. They searched this entire island, and they just did not find anything. So the captain sent out a telegram on December 26, 1900, and he sent this to the Northern Lighthouse Board. The telegram read, "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The three keepers have disappeared from the island. The clocks were stopped and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened a week ago. Poor fellows must have blown over the cliffs or drowned." So the men began looking at the island again, and they had found that everything was intact on the east landing, but the west landing had damage. So they even saw that iron railings were bent due to a strong wave or strong winds. Investigators could only speculate what happened to them, and they basically theorized that they must have gotten in the way of a large wave and they got swept away. All three men left behind children and wives. Now, this is where it really gets strange. So the logbooks of the lighthouse were investigated, and they found this. On December 12th, the keeper Thomas Marshall wrote that the winds had been so brutal that he quoted, "They were the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. He also wrote that the other keepers, James Ducat and Donald MacArthur, had been quiet, and that Donald MacArthur had been crying. So Donald MacArthur was said to be very aggressive and kind of rough around the edges. So why would a man like this be crying? He was also a veteran mariner and lighthouse keeper, so he knew this life, he knew how it went. It was something that he was very used to. Log entries from the next day said that the storm was still raging and that the men were praying. So I don't really understand this, especially because they were in a 150-foot lighthouse and they knew that they were safe from any storm. So why were they so emotional and praying when they had been used to this many times before? What's even more strange is that there had been no record of any storm occurring through the days that he had wrote in the logbook. So the three keepers are saying that there's a storm that has been raging, the worst storm they've ever seen, but officials say there was no storm in that area. So it's very strange. The final entry on December 15th said, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." Further proposal is essentially based on the psychology of the lighthouse keepers. So as mentioned before, Donald MacArthur was a little bit aggressive. So did he lash out on the other two? Did he, get so frustrated and angry at the isolation in the lighthouse. I mean, it's very possible. There are many stories of lighthouse keepers going insane and harming themselves or others. And other theories get really crazy. People speculate that it was an alien abduction or that a giant sea serpent, got a hold of them and took them. And they also speculate that a siren, a mermaid siren, lured them to their death. So this is all mystical and fantasy, but I don't know. I mean, there's a reason why these tales came about in the first place, so. And also that means if Donald MacArthur murdered the other two keepers, he must have ended his own life since none of the three were found. And they knew not to go outside when a storm was raging this bad. So I find it kind of unlikely that they would be swept away by a large wave. They weren't dumb. They would not be just chilling outside during the storm. And if it were a murder/suicide, wouldn't one of the keepers write in the logbook that another keeper was being aggressive and that things were getting hostile? I don't know. It seems like it. So what do you think? What is your theory? Honestly, at this point, we'll probably never know. And I guess that's what makes this such a crazy mystery. And honestly, the ocean and lighthouses, they have such a creepy and scary background. So I think this is really interesting. And now lighthouses scare me more than anything since I've seen the movie. So that's all from me today, guys. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. It really helps my channel out a lot. And thank you.